What's up, everybody? My name is Scott Waters from No That to Metal, and this is Trog. Yeah, go ahead and do another one. You got.
I only got 2 left in this preliminary pile. But... All right, yeah. When I was in DT Seizure, oh, the name is on here. I never noticed that before. I never knew the name was on the cover because I've never seen it on vinyl. Slayer, South of Heaven. See, you probably knew that. I didn't, because we had it on cassette at the time, and when we were in DT, we listened to this thing all the time. And this was such a different approach for those guys because it was they had slowed things down.
Yes,
and
but it was so heavy.
It was kind of Sabbathy, but yeah, it's totally heavy. But
the
those
title track is just
those dissonant guitars.
Oh yeah,
awesome.
If I had to pick a flavor Slayer song, I think that would
South of
probably be
Heaven?
in the top. That's just a great song.
I think Angel of Death is mine.
Yeah,
I love that tune. I mean, they went into some different areas. This wasn't all Hail Satan like their earlier efforts had been. So they were singing about some different stuff.
Yeah,
it was a little more intelligent. Serial killers and war, and still violent, but that's totally Slayer. I mean, there's definitely you can't. You know what you're going to get pretty much as far as subject matter is concerned.
We lost it right from there.
Yeah, Jeff Hanneman's gone. In fact, Slayer is. Have they already finished up their final tour? At least they're saying they're retiring. Yeah, Slayer, they're like the AC/DC of thrash. I mean, they're just so consistent. You know what you're going to get, pretty much.
Yeah, and they're huge. I mean,
oh yeah, Slayer's massive.
You can't even go to any metal show without some drunk guy screaming out Slayer.
Yeah, they become iconic in that way. I mean, because they're outside. I mean, they're one of the big four.
Yeah.
But they were outside of the Megadeth Metallica mentality a bit.
They did sway. They did change their sound a little bit, though. They kind of went in a slightly more hardcore sound. Not here, but later ones.
And they put out an album that had a lot of hardcore covers on it.
Yep.
Which was kind of cool.
But they never really went the way of the Black Album or Risk or.
No, they stayed pretty true.
Yeah.
To what they were doing for the most part.
This is an unusual one. It's Exciter. They were always a power trio from Canada, hyper speed metal, one of the proto bands for thrash.
Absolutely.
But by this time, this is like their 5th album, I think.
Is this after Unveiling the Wicked?
I think it's after Unveiling the Wicked, so it would have been their 5th, right? And not including EPs and all that.
Oh, right. The Feel the Knife.
Feel the Knife, yeah, that kind of stuff. But this album is absent guitarist
John Ricci.
Exactly. But you still have. What's his name? Alan Johnson on bass, and of course drummer, vocalist Dan Beeler. And Dan's vocals are very much his own.
He's very screechy, very up there.
Yeah, it's funny. A lot of bands from Canada were like that. Think about it.
Yeah.
I mean, Rush.
Yeah. I was like, Rush and Dan Beeler.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
I'm trying to think. There was other ones because I was thinking about this the other day. I was listening to some band from Canada. I'm like, man, they had a lot of high pitched vocals in those kind of bands. Yeah. Anyhow, but they're a 4-piece here, so they got 2 guitar players, so they could do more of that dual guitar thing that everybody was doing at the time.
I mean, I liked Exciter as a power trio. That was always one of their things that appealed to me.
Yeah.
But
it's still a great album from them, and of course they were always just kind of like, we're loud, we're proud, play it loud, and it's still in the back here. This album was specifically mixed to be played loud.
Loud and proud.
Exciter. So to me, it's just another Exciter album. It's not quite as memorable as,
Heavy Metal Maniac or Power, Violence and Force.
Those albums were so raw, guttural, youthful.
Yeah.
And by this time, they were,
that's still
again, I'd say it's maturing maybe as musicians, maturing as people.
It's just like punk. I mean, if a punk band is going to be around forever, they are going to get better. Yeah. They're just going to get better. It's just the way it works.
Yeah. So, but then again, in that same thing is that people get better, but some of the things you like about those punk bands or early Raven or early Exciter was that rawness that that
this was all heart and it was all vibe. And
yeah, it was attitude exactly.
Yeah.
But anyhow,
they weren't
good
trying
album.
to prove anything.
I'm not going to say it's a great album. If I had to, if they were actually on the fence of making the list, but because we had to cut out some.
Do another one.
All right.
Speaking of 4 or 5 there, and I got 1.
I got 3.
Oh, okay.
So another one talking about the Queensryche kind of bands. This is Crimson Glory, their second album, Transcendence. You got.
Were those guys with the masks?
Yes, they wore the masks on the first 2 records, including this one. Just otherworldly vocals from Midnight, and the guy's name was Midnight. Again, kind of where you wish Queensryche would have gone after the EP or the Warning. You know.
Oh yeah.
Kind of instead of going the way they did, which was veering off to all their different styles.
Yep.
This is where a lot of people wished they would have gone. But this has incredible songs. My favorite being Red Shark, I think, is on here. Red Shark's, yeah, right there. Lady of Winter. This is not a bad song on this. Where Dragons Rule. Lonely. This album is just, it's just straightforward heavy metal. Very Queensryche-ish, like I said, but I don't know if you're into power metal or American heavy metal. These guys are just very well known. I know.
Transcendence. I don't know what this is on the back. It's some kind of seal, some occultic looking thing.
I have no idea. No idea at all. But anyhow, they did release another album after this one, and then Midnight was gone. Their vocals was going after the 3rd album, and they released more stuff. But they changed their sound after the first 2. They no longer had that Queensryche sound with the 3rd album, which I also love. They went towards a more Zeppelinist, straightforward hard rock sound.
Wow.
Which they did great. I mean, but this in their first album, there's just most people would say these were one of the greatest American heavy metal bands to come out of the mid '80s. So, and I would agree. Very, very great album from them. This is a musical vinyl reissue of it, and the sound quality on this thing is spectacular. I had an original pressing too, which I've since traded off. I rarely do that because I usually like to have the original pressing. Yeah. But this one just sounded so good.
There was a band called Crimson Thorn too.
Crimson Thorn was a death metal band from the 90s.
I mixed those 2 guys up. Do another one.
A lot of Christian bands in this one.
Yeah, actually there were.
The Christian music was becoming much more better.
It was gooder than it used to be.
It's much gooder than it used to be. Yeah. This is the 3rd album from Bloodgood, Rockin' a Hard Place. This album is a bit weird. The first album was straightforward heavy metal. Second album was a little more refined. They did songs like the Crucify, and come on, what song that goes with Crucify?
Yeah, I can't think of it either.
Anyhow,
we just talked about it in the last video, I think.
Yeah, we did. Anyhow, this one they
Savior?
No, Messiah.
Messiah.
Yeah.
There you go.
And anyhow, this album they got a little more melodic. There's like piano parts on here and stuff like that, but it's still metal. It's still pretty straightforward. It's not like proggy or anything like that. But the production's a little more weird. Apparently, the story that I've been told was I thought there was no bass guitar on here. I thought the bass guitar had been like pulled so out of the mix you couldn't hear the bass guitar.
Oh.
That is what I thought when I knew nothing about music or recording when I first got this record. After being in a band and being in studios, what I realized is it's not the bass guitar is missing, it's that the overall production is very trebly and it's missing the bottom end.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what Michael Bloodgood told me because when I had started my site in 1999, I had written something on my site about this album not having the bass guitar, and Michael Bloodgood contacted me. He's like, "Oh, there's bass guitar on there," and he explained it to me. He was very nice about it. He wasn't like, a prick or anything.
Stop lying about us.
He just let me know. He was like, "No," he said, "We were in a studio that had a lot of false bottom end in their sound system, so we mixed the album, and it sounded great in the studio, and then it came out, and it sounded like this." To me, I still like it. Kind of like Ultimatum's Puppet of Destruction. It was missing the bottom end because they mixed it in the studio. That was had a lot of bottom end in their sound system. So when it finally came out, I was like, "Where's the bass?
Yeah.
Where's the?"
This isn't gospel or anything, but anytime I've ever done any recording, I always get a mix and I ride around in my car with it.
Yep. Best place to listen to it.
Yeah. So that just gives you that's where a lot of people are going to hear it for the first time. If it sounds decent in there, probably going to sound decent anywhere else.
Yeah.
So,
but anyhow, it's still a great record. She's Gone is one of my favorite songs. And that's actually like a ballady song, but it's a very emotional song about someone who committed suicide, I believe. So I could just kind of
the Sabbath song. Is it?
No. Is it called She's Gone? Yes, it is. She's Gone. Yeah. And then there's a song on here that's very heavy. Ends the album called Seven. It's all about the number 7 and the whole mysticism with that and how it's in the Bible.
Right.
Let's see what else is on.
I've never seen this one.
Shaking It, which is all about the. It's funny because so many bands were talking about the TV preachers at the time and all that nonsense that was going on with the TV preachers, and that's what that song is. It's about shaking it and shaking your moneymaker, and so it was all about the TV preachers and stuff like that. It's a great song too. Huh. They also, I mean, I don't think they look too bad here. Like the first couple albums.
That's interesting looking cover.
Yeah, a lot of the.
It almost looks like Blood Rock.
All the back covers on all these releases that came out on Frontline and Intense Records they're terrible. I mean,
they're just plain.
They're just terrible. I just think vinyl was disappearing and they didn't care.
Yeah.
But anyhow, Bloodgood, third album, good stuff.
Cool.
Go ahead, you can do that one.
Or you do one, I'll do that, and then
that'll work. EP. Now this is more thrash metal. This is on New Renaissance Records. This was their second release after their full-length album. This is Face Fate, 4-song EP. Raw, very guttural. It doesn't. I'm not gonna say
the band is Blood Feast.
Blood Feast.
Oh, okay.
And that's actually the name they changed to right before they started recording. Now I can't remember what the original name was at the top of my head. I actually have one of the original pins that they were selling at their shows before they changed their name.
Oh, okay.
They had the same logo. It was called Blood Lust. That's it.
Oh, all right.
And I don't know if it was a legal thing or a label thing that they changed their name for. It looked just like this. It just said Lust here instead of Feast. And,
okay.
But anyhow, people call them a B grade Slayer. And that's kind of what they are. But if Slayer was releasing what we do So South of Heaven, this is more early Slayer.
Okay.
Very fast, punky influence, raw. They probably could play their instruments, but they didn't care, kind of thing. It was just like, arg, and great cover too. I like the cover on this one. It's funny because this was on a little teeny label, and some of the covers that came out,
pretty cool artwork. Yeah.
Very death metal-ish looking.
Yep.
And this is another one of those bands that could have actually, been on that like Possessed.
Yeah.
Where it was like they were pushing towards the boundaries of what thrash metal was.
Yeah.
Anyhow.
Yeah, Possessed. That's fun. Okay. Well, speaking of playing covers, I typically, I tend to take the piss out of hair and glam metal a bit. I was into it for a little bit in the early years of it, and then I just got very disillusioned with the whole thing. But this band, I think, was one of the best out of that whole period, was Cinderella. I thought they always did good stuff, and that's what Tom Kiefer was a great songwriter.
Yeah, he's very Steven Tyler-esque.
Very. And he had that very raspy, high-end voice that I remember when Gypsy Road, I liked Night Songs, loved it actually, and I remember Gypsy Road getting played on the radio well before the album came out. And I kept, I was going in my local record shop, which I think was Recordland in Portland, Maine, and I just asked every week, is the new Cinderella out yet? New Cinderella out yet? And it just finally, after what seemed like months, it finally came out, and I really dug this album a lot. A lot of bluesy stuff going on.
Yeah, definitely a different vibe from the first album. That was definitely more of what was going on at the time, hair. Yep. I mean, I hate the term hair metal, but
to me, it just because it kind of makes fun of it. That's why I prefer.
And that's what that's what it is. I don't like about it because hair metal was a derogatory term to say that those kind of bands were look over substance.
And I mean, for a lot of them,
there was some that were definitely
true.
that. But there's just so many bands that get lumped into that aren't that.
True.
And I particularly think that Cinderella were one of those.
Oh yeah, it's just they were part of they were in that whole thing when fashion was such a huge part of what it all was. Thank you, Bon Jovi.
Yeah.
And I just thought this was a great album, and they just put more grit. Instead of getting poppier, they got kind of heavier from what they were doing, and it just had a bit more substance to it. And I thought it was a great one.
Yeah, very bluesy record.
Yep.
But it still retains some of that heaviness and the rawness of the first album, especially in his vocals.
Yeah. And this doesn't have a track list on it, but Bad Seamstress Blues, Falling Apart at the Seams, great opener. Gypsy Road, like I said, that was the big single.
Yep.
Don't Know What You Got Till It's Gone. The song still gets to me. I can still hear that. I remember I had just joined DT Seizure. I was listening to this tune, because I had just moved away from home for the first time, and it was like that song just totally got me right here. I'm like, oh man. So I don't know, it's a good one. I just think from that era, there's not a whole lot that I typically have really good to say about it, but Cinderella I think were one of the strong points.
That particular album was the Japanese pressing was given to me by my brother. So if my brother Jeff is watching, thank you, Jeff. It's funny, he's never bought me a record before, but he bought me that one and sent it to me. And it's the only one
it's a Japanese version.
It's very cool, yeah. So, last one before we get into our top 10.
Yep.
Top 10s.
Top
Atrophy,
19.
more thrash. I was just huge into thrash in this era, and I still love this stuff today. I never get enough of it. This is Socialized Hate. I always mix up the albums. The second album from Atrophy, again on the same Road Racer, Road Runner, RC. You know, they just were releasing a ton of this stuff. And frankly, during that time period, if I saw a band in a store, I didn't even have to listen to it. It was on that label, and it had that look. I bought it just because I love that sound.
Yeah.
And I think Atrophy are still around. They still play shows. They played at one of the Milwaukee Metal Fest or one of them just a couple years ago, but they don't have any new material out. They keep promising it, but I haven't seen it.
Okay.
But they did release their early demos on vinyl, which I did pick up. So
awesome.
Anyhow, all right, that's enough for this one because we need to get to the top 10, and
all
we're
right.
probably
You want to take a break?
taking a break. So we'll be back. That's it. Thanks for watching.
No, I mean,
God bless.
I didn't mean like a real one.
Yeah,
I meant a break. We got to still do our top 19.
They're on a break.
Well, we're not together.
You cheated on me with a copy girl. Yeah.